Hi students, yesterday we did talk about thematic aspect of the poem The Gift of God by George Herbert. We discussed the theme of the poem and the poet and his school that he belongs to. We knew to the point that he was a religious and metaphysical poet, and he has tried to unveil the truth as to relentless and unsatisfying condition of human being despite having everything he wants. Now we are moving to the next aspect of the poem, that is justification of the title. We know that the poem is known as Puli also, and herein lies the justification of the title. The term Puli is the title of the poem. That is a conceit. We should mention here that metaphysical poet is known for using his metaphysical conceit, and this is a kind of comparison that the poet makes between two dissimilar things. Here we should notice that conceit is a mechanical device, and so is pulley here. We already know that pulley is also a mechanical device by which we apply force to one end with a view to lifting an object tied to another end. The object is lifted in proportion to the amount of force we apply. Here we can say that the poet has used rest as the leverage to draw mankind to God. As the pulley is very much helpful mechanical device to bring something near by applying force to another end. Similarly, the poet has used restlessness as a device to make mankind near to God. It is just to maintain the relationship between God and human being. So in this way we can say that the relationship between God and mankind has been compared with two different objects. Yes, on the one hand, it is a physical device pulley, which is used for physical purpose. That is one thing. And another device is restlessness. That is a religious device. And so, pulley, the physical device, has been compared with the religious or spiritual device, restlessness, because they have the same function to perform, but they belong to two different entity of existence. So it is what is termed as metaphysical conceit. In our examination, time and again, the term metaphysical conceit is asked to explain. Now we can say that it is not only George Herbert who has used this very term metaphysical concept in this poetry. We may also find the same technique used by John Donne also in his poem to create an effect, that is poetic effect, that he wants to bring two different realities very closer for the purpose of serving something special that is already in the mind of the poet. So George Herbert is a metaphysical poet, or is using that kind of metaphysical concept, and from the poetic justice point of view, we can say that pulley is very much the device that the poet has used to bring human being as much closer to the God as he should be. So it is on this ground we can say the title of the poem pulley has been justified. And when we are talking about the title gift of God, definitely we can say that God had endowed with so many gifts, so many jewels, so many treasures, which were very much into the glass of blessing. God has just handed over all the jewels to human beings except pulley, with a view to maintaining a kind of a relationship between man and himself. Now we are just taking into account another aspect of the poem that is equally important. We can say that the poem is written into certain structure. There is a formal device of the poem. Now there is a certain idea in the mind of the poet to deal with, and to give hand to his idea that he has, he just makes the structural or a strategical device to compose the poem. Especially when you are talking about metaphysical poet, you find they have had their structural device. And when we are talking about that structural device of this poem, we should remember first that this poem consists of 4 stanzas. That is the first point that you should remember. The second point is that they consist of 5 lines. It means each stanza has 5 lines. So we can say that there are 4 stanzas made of 5 lines. So these are 2 important structural points that we have discussed. And the stanza of 5 lines is known as quatrain. Now this is the very much term which is asked again in the examination to explain. So when this kind of question is raised as to explain the idea of quatrain, we can say that it is a structural device that poet is using to compose a poem in which he makes a stanza of 5 lines. Now we are going to talk about a rhyme scheme of the poem. That it is the rhyme scheme which makes a poem, because here sound plays a very important role. We find that most of the classical works are well rhymed. They are so rhymed that there is a repetition of sound. Here too we find that the poem has end rhyming in terms of ABA, that there are 5 lines in which the first line and the third line are rhymed together. Second line and the fourth lines are rhymed together, and the fifth line is rhymed with third and the first line. So the end rhyme scheme of the poem is ABABA. Next is the idea related to the structure of the poem, that is the end rhyming is made in such a way that it provides a reader a kind of consuming feeling of unity of the structure and unity of idea also. So it plays a very important role when we are talking about the theme and structure of the poem. Both are unified because they are set into very strict end rhyme scheme. Now here we can say the poem has been written into dialogue form. It appears from the reading of the poem that there is a speaker. That speaker is poet himself who is making a dialogue to the reader about the dilemma of the God when he started just making human being, especially as to the virtues that he wanted to pour on human beings. Now, so when there is a dilemma, we are in talk because we want to come to a kind of just answer to that dilemma. So they are talking. God is also talking to himself time and again, and the poet is also talking to the reader as if he speaks to us as to enigma of relationship between God and man. This is very much the problem which has been dealt with by religious teacher, by philosopher, by poet. They have tried to deal with this kind of idea in different way. In the poem, we sometimes come across initial rhyming as well, because this kind of serious topic can be dealt with poetic quality to catch the attention of the reader, because it is such a hard question to discuss that we cannot make the reader engage unless the poem is written into certain kind of rhyming pattern which provides music, which provides musical effect to the reader. So besides end rhyming that we have already discussed, we should also talk about the initial rhyming that is very much found into this poem, in which we can say that the beginning of the line of the poem has been rhymed. Now we can take the example of just a no sound, no consonant sound used in the word then and when. So we should go go through the lines, and here the lines are just very much second and third lines of the stanza 2, and the lines are here. Then beauty flowed, then wisdom, honor, pleasure. When almost all was out, God made a stay. Now in these two lines we find that then and when are initial words, and there is a consonant no in then, and there is a consonant no in when, which is repeated, and the repetition of that consonant no sound is making initial rhyming of the poem. Likewise, in the stanza 3 we find initial rhymings between the word sow and bestow in the fifth and the second lines of the stanza. So here the lines are: bestow this jewel also on my creature, so both should loser be. Here what you find is the fact that the initial words of these lines are bestow and sow. Here we do not find any sort of consonant repetition as such, but we find that there is a repetition of vowel sound like O in bestow and in sow. So due to repetition of O vowel sound, we find that the words bestow and sow are rhymed, and it is why this is an example of initial rhyming. Now, after rhyming, we should go to the most important structural device of the poem, that it is a very serious and tough work for the poet to keep the line into certain meter scheme, because they try to make the lines into meter scheme for making it most memorable. We find when we are going to count the number of syllable in the lines, and we find that the number of syllable is kept the same in all the lines, or maybe in some lines after certain repetition or interval. It creates a very good example of a structural pattern. So here you find that in this poem the lines are following meter very consistently. Now we should go through the first and the fifth lines of each stanza, and you find that these two lines conform to iambic trimeter. Here we need elaboration of the idea of iambic trimeter. Trimeter simply means that the line is made of 3 meter. It means there are 3 sets in the line made of 2 syllabi. Now by iambic we mean that the first syllable of that line is unstressed, while the second syllable is stressed. Third syllable is unstressed, fourth syllable is stressed, fifth syllable is unstressed, and sixth syllable is stressed. So they are just examples of iambic trimeter. Trimeter because I have shown that line divided into 3 sets by the slash. I read the line here once again. When God at first made man contract into a span, we see that each line has been divided into 3 sets, so they are trimeters, and the first syllable of the first set is unstressed, the second syllable is stressed. Of the second set, first syllable is unstressed, second is stressed, and of the third set we find the first syllable is unstressed and the second is stressed. So when is unstressed, God is stressed. At is unstressed, first is stressed. Made is unstressed, man is stressed. Coming to the further line, we see that contract into a span. Con is unstressed, tract is stressed, N is unstressed, to is stressed, A is unstressed, and span is stressed. So these two lines are example of iambic trimeter. Now we also find that it is not in iambic trimeter that all lines of the poem have been written. Rather, the second, third and fourth lines of each stanza have been written into iambic pentameter. We can say the concept of iambic is the same here, that iambic simply implies the first level unstressed, second is stressed. But here, when you talk about pentameter, we find that the lines are divided into 5 sets. So there are 10 syllabi. As in iambic trimeter there are 6 syllabi. Here in iambic pentameter there are 10 syllabi. Because in iambic trimeter there were 3 sets, in iambic pentameter there are 5 sets. So we can say that the first syllable once again is unstressed, second is stressed, and so on. We can go to locate the stressing and unstressing of the syllable. So we find that these lines are iambic pentameter, and it provides a poem a kind of a structured feeling. We should talk about the line. Here we find the line is written in having a glass of blessings standing by. Let us, said he, pour on him all we can. Let the world's riches which dispersed lie. So these are all three lines. They have been written into iambic pentameter because having has two syllabi. Have, ing, have is unstressed, ing is stressed. We can go to the second set, a glass, in which I is unstressed, glass is stressed. In third set, of bless, of is unstressed, bless is stressed. In fourth set, inks stand, inks is unstressed, stand stressed. In the fifth set, ing by, ing is unstressed and by is stressed. So likewise we can talk about also let us, said he, pour on him all, we can, let the walls reaches which this past lie. And these are all important points that we have discussed about what we can call the term like iambic pentameter and the term like iambic trimeter. It is the very important part of a scansion. This time a question on a scansion is not asked in examination, but to be a poet, idea of a scansion is very important because it makes us know about the stressing and unstressing of the syllable, because we already know the language English is very much what we can call made of different sounds, vowel and consonants and diphthongs, and where we can talk about the formation of syllable on the basis of vowel sound present there, and by going through just utterance of the word, we can very much divide the word into syllable, and likewise we can just make the stressing and unstressing fall on different levels of the words. So I think that we should here make our topic stop for the time being, because we have just talked about so important idea from our examination point of view, or from the point of view of just making ourselves as a poet or understanding poetry more clearly. It can give us the sense of poetic understanding. We can also find that when you are reading the poem, it is not with a view to finding certain kind of themes and idea which are kept there by the poet only. Yes, it is one aspect that everybody tries to know, but we can see that it is the art, particularly, and the art is all due to the fact that it has rhyming, it has just meter, and at the same time there is just a regularity of a stanza, and there is a division of a stanza. They are all the just technical aspects of the poem that a poet tries to give to his poem. And so we can say that the rhyming and just these things are very much essential to make the poem musical as well. And we always try to find certain kind of rasa, as we are just finding this concept very much discussed into Sanskrit literature. It is all because of the sound pattern that we get a rasa there, and that meaning is also very much related with that structure that the poet tries to give to the poem. So I think it is enough for today, and we should make this lecture stop. And I hope that we are all nice, fine and safe in your home, continuing the study. Here I too, Dr. Naveen Kumar Jha, Associate Professor in English of Ram Avatar Gautam Sanskrit College, very safe, fine, and I hope all world safe just in the crisis of COVID-19. Thank you once again for joining this lecture. Thank you very much.